The wind came down from the mesas like a forgotten breath, dry and wide and patient. It carried with it the scent of sun-cracked juniper dust older than memory, and the faint rustle of unseen things watching from the ridge. The Four Corners country had a way of making a man feel like he was standing still, while the land remembered everything he was trying to forget. Elijah Cole had lived alone out there since the spring of '73. 3 years by his count, though he no longer kept track with calendars or clocks. He was 45 now, though his bones said older, and what he hadn't lost to war and mine shafts he gave away to silence. The cabin he called home was a hunchbacked structure of adobe and timber, patched with tin and stubbornness. It stood alone on a rise overlooking a shallow arroyo, like a scar of its own on the land. The pain started 2 weeks back. It began as a prickling, a hot itch just above his left brow, as though something inside the bone was trying to claw its way out. At first he thought it was just an old injury, flaring up from his days under the sun in Skyfall Crater, back when he worked the pit for Kepler's syndicate. The hours had been cruel, but the pay steady, and he needed it bad then. But now, a decade later, something in him was waking again, and it was not bone nor blood. Each morning, he woke to the same thing, a pressure building behind his forehead, like a second heart learning how to beat. Then came the dreams. He saw the desert at night, drenched in ghost-light stars, swirling overhead, like they were being poured down a drain. A beam of blue fire fell from the heavens, silent and slow, cracking the earth like an egg. Out of that split came whispers not in any tongue he knew, but they moved through him like prayer and disease all at once. When he woke, his skin was damp with sweat, and a new dark stain marked his pillow. By the 5th day, the lump had grown visible right at the center of his forehead, hard and gleaming beneath the skin. The flesh there felt fevered tender and pulsed to its own rhythm. He'd tried not to look at it, but when he caught his reflection in the tin basin, it stared back, like a tiny black eye set into his skull. He didn't speak to it, not yet, but he knew it was listening. Sometimes when the wind died down and the world went still, he thought he heard a word not quite English, not quite human, whispered inside the hollow of his skull. And it knew his name. That morning, Elijah stood by the fire pit out back, shirt half unbuttoned, wind tugging at the fringe of his duster. The smell was back, ozone and iron, like the air after lightning strikes. A drop of dark fluid ran down his temple, and he wiped it away with the back of his hand. It left behind a smear of ink-black oil, flecked with something that shimmered faintly blue in the dawn light. He rubbed it between his fingers. The stuff was thicker than blood, colder than sweat. It hissed faintly as it hit the ground, and where it fell the dirt seemed to recoil. "Ain't normal," he muttered, voice dry as the arroyo. The horse tethered a few feet away, stamped once, and gave a low, uneasy sound. Elijah looked to the ridge line. The morning sun painted the cliff in gold and ash, and a cloud of birds rose sudden from the brush, wheeling like they'd heard something he couldn't. He went inside. The cabin was spare but clean in its own way. Shelves of books lined the back wall, medical texts, a tattered Bible, journals full of sketches and notes. He opened one and scribbled a date beside a simple line. Substance now contains solid fragments. Irregular, but refracting. He paused, stared at the words, then added beneath, still alone. Something shifted in the lump above his eyes. Not a throb, not a twitch. A pull. Like gravity but inward. Like the world was trying to turn itself inside out through his skull. He staggered back, hand gripping the edge of the table. His breathing came short. That faint hiss again, but not outside. This time it was inside him. "What in hell are you?" No answer. Just that cold pressure building. He grabbed the flask beside the bed, downed a long pull of whiskey, and stepped outside again. The air hit him like a slap. He stood there a moment, bareheaded, the breeze running lingers through his graying hair. Somewhere in the east clouds were gathering. That was rare, too rare. And then it happened. A line of pain ripped across his forehead, sharp and surgical. He fell to one knee, clutching his face as the lump burst open with a wet pop. The fluid came first, a stream of black-blue thick azoxyl grease, and then the iron. Tiny perfect shards of metal spilled onto his palm, each one no bigger than a grain of sand, but shaped like nothing he'd seen. They glinted in the sunlight, like they remembered stars. But they didn't just fall. They crawled. Slow as molasses but sure as tide, they inched toward one another on his palm. Elijah stared unmoving as they drew together, clicking softly, arranging themselves into the faint outline of a spiral. Then he reached to touch them, and they scattered as if startled. Elijah stared at them, the pain still fresh, but distant, like it belonged to someone else now. "This ain't sickness," he whispered. "This is something else." Behind him, the wind shifted, and from somewhere far above, though the sky was clear and wide, he thought he heard the faintest murmur of a voice that did not belong to this world. Then came silence, heavy and old, as if the land itself was holding its breath. The woman came with the morning haze, her silhouette slow moving through the brush, dust gray and steady. She wore a traveler's coat too big for her frame, a rifle slung across her back, and behind her, a boy trudged with a canteen swinging at his side. The child had eyes too sharp for 11, and the woman walked like someone who'd spent more time patching wounds than receiving comfort. Clara Keene. She said her name like it cost something to speak. 30 years old, though her voice carried older, with the precision of someone who'd once given orders in the middle of battlefield screams. "We saw Smokey," she said. "Didn't expect to find a place still standing." Elijah regarded her from the porch, his hand unconsciously drifting to the bandage across his forehead. "Plenty burned out here. What are you looking for?" "My husband," she replied, "or what's left of him." She didn't elaborate, and Elijah didn't ask. He offered water, a place in the shade, and silence, the kind he'd long since mastered. The boy Isaac drank like a colt and kept glancing at Elijah's forehead. He didn't ask about the bandage, just stared like he could see through it. As they unpacked their saddlebags, Isaac looked directly at Elijah and said, "It's talking to you, ain't it? That thing on your head." Elijah froze. "Who told you that?" "Didn't need to be told," the boy said. "I can hear it too. Just a little." They stayed the night. Desert manners. Clara cooked beans and Elijah lit a lantern with hands that trembled more than he liked. Later, while Isaac slept inside, Clara stood by the doorway. "You worked Skyfall, didn't you?" she asked quietly. Elijah nodded. "For a time. Back in 66. She looked at him, then not like a stranger but like someone remembering something she had spent too long trying to forget. "I was stationed there," she said. "Union Field Hospital, few miles off. We treated the miners. Burns, fatigue, infections that didn't make sense." Elijah's eyes narrowed. "And we found things in their blood," Clara said. "Fragments, metallic, not iron like we knew it. Glowed under the lantern. Men said they could hear it." Elijah turned, slowly pulled the bandage back. The wound on his forehead had stopped weeping, but under the skin the shimmer remained. Clara drew in a sharp breath. "Same color. God help us." He sat heavily. "Started 2 weeks ago. Pain first, then the dreams. Dreams of the sky breaking, of something falling." Her voice was barely a whisper now. He nodded. She leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. "Isaac's father went out to that crater in 74. Never came back. Company said it was a cave-in. I think they lied." "They did," Elijah said. "I was there before the silence started. Before the ore turned strange. Miners quit talking. Started listening to things that weren't there. Said they could feel the metal thinking." Clara looked out toward the desert. The wind had picked up dry and hot. "Whatever fell in that crater," she said, "it's still waking up, and it's not done with us yet." The boy stirred inside, murmuring in his sleep. And in the hush that followed, Elijah thought he felt it too, just beneath the bone, a whisper not made by flesh or thought, but by something older, something cold and watching. The desert spoke in stillness. In the early hours before sun or sound, it breathed only in the creak of cedar limbs, the hush of dust shifting on its own. There was no bird call, no cry of coyote, just the hush, like the land had drawn in a breath and hadn't let it out in centuries. Elijah stood at the edge of his porch, a coffee cup cooling in his hand, eyes fixed on the horizon. The weight in his forehead pulsed not with pain now, but with rhythm. A low, steady beat, like a slow drum echoing through bone. Not his pulse, something older, something separate. He had not told Clara yet, nor the boy. The iron had started to hum. It was faint, a murmur just below perception, a vibration more than sound but unmistakably alive. At night, when the winds died and the moon rose high, he could feel it stirring, like it remembered something, like it wanted to be whole. "It ain't done with me," Elijah muttered, touching the faint swell beneath his brow. The boy Isaac was out back by the trough, trying to mend a warped piece of fence wire. The kid had a steadiness about him Elijah admired, quiet but never scared, like he'd already learned too young that fear wasted time. Clara emerged from the cabin, tying her hair back. She had begun cataloging everything: Elijah's symptoms, the iron's behavior, the strange dreams they both now shared. Their nights were interrupted by whispering wind and flashes of blue fire. Every morning her eyes seemed more sunken, more aware. But it wasn't Clara who felt the dust shift that day. It was the earth. At midday, with the heat pressing down hard and still, a figure appeared on the trail. She moved like a shadow low to the ground, wrapped in layers of bone-white cloth that flapped softly in the breeze. A crooked stick tapped rhythmically ahead of her, feeling every stone. Elijah watched her approach, heart thudding not from fear, but from something deeper. Recognition, perhaps. When she reached the gate, she stopped. "I heard the iron singing," she said. Her voice was cracked and soft, like bark peeled from old wood. Her eyes were white, cloudy stones, set into a weathered face. "My name is Shaina. I have come because it calls again." Clara stepped forward cautiously. "You felt it? From how far?" "Far enough that I prayed not to be right." Shaina turned her blind gaze toward Elijah. "The sky broke once. My people remembered it. We buried what fell, locked it under sacred stone. But now—" She reached out with one hand and tapped the air just in front of Elijah's forehead. Her fingers didn't touch him, but he felt the iron stir inside, like it recognized her. "That is not metal," she said. "It is something else. It is alive." Elijah swallowed. "What do you mean, alive?" Shaina tilted her head. "It remembers. It waits. It learns the shape of your thoughts. It wants to belong again to itself." Isaac, who had crept up beside them, looked from face to face. "So it's not from here. It is not from any here you would understand," she said. "But your ancestors dug too deep. Their greed uncovered the mouth of something sleeping, and now it breathes again." Elijah stepped back, the hum in his head suddenly louder. A flicker of heat surged through him like lightning caught beneath the skin. "The pieces," he said. "They move. Not just shimmer. They move." Shaina nodded. "They seek each other. When scattered, they call across the dirt like wolves. They want to reunite. When they do, they speak." Clara glanced sharply at Elijah and Feis-Tal. "You didn't tell me that." "I didn't know what to call it," he said, voice tight. "Some nights they just rattle. Other times they try to climb." He lifted his palm, showed her a shard he'd hidden in a scrap of cloth. It twitched faintly, like a drop of mercury quivering toward his skin. Shaina murmured a low chant, in a language neither Clara nor Elijah understood. The shard stilled, then curled back on itself like ashamed. "You must not let them join," she said. "If the heart reforms, it will awaken the whole." Isaac stepped forward, curious, despite himself. "But why me? Why'd it talk to me too?" Shaina turned toward him slowly. "Because you are young, new. You have no fear yet, so it can find room inside." And then it happened. Isaac, fiddling with the broken fence post, caught his thumb on a jagged edge. He hissed in pain, a thin line of blood beading. Elijah moved toward him, but too late. A glint on the ground, one of the shards unnoticed till now, slid across the dirt and paused at the edge of the cut. It shimmered, waiting. Isaac stared at it. His breath caught. The shard pulsed once. Then again. "It's asking," he whispered. "Isaac, no!" Clara shouted, rushing forward. But the boy didn't move. The shard quivered, then darted forward and disappeared into the wound. Isaac gasped. Clara knelt, grabbing his hand, inspecting him. "What did you do?" it asked. He said softly. I said yes." Elijah stared, horrified. "The shard went in." Isaac nodded. "It feels warm, like my blood's faster. The pain's gone." Shaina dropped her staff, face paling. "Then it has chosen." "Chosen?" Clara's voice broke. "It picked him. He is not rejecting it. The iron accepts him." Clara trembled, then stood abruptly. "Get it out. We have to remove it." "Too late," Shaina murmured. "It's already become part of him." Clara's voice cracked with fury. "This is your fault. You brought this here. I trusted you." Elijah held up his hands, shaken. "Clara." "No," she snapped. "You should have kept him away from it. You knew something was wrong." Isaac stepped back from them both. His eyes gleamed faintly. "Mom," he said, quiet. "I can hear them now. Under the hill. They're waiting." Shaina turned her face to the wind. "Now the iron will try to rebuild itself through him. Unless you break the chain." "What chain?" Elijah asked. "The one that ties man to sky," she said. "You must aver it, or bury it again like before." The sun hung heavy over the land, shadows stretching like claws. And for the first time since it began, Elijah felt something more than pain or confusion. He felt dread. Something beneath the dust was waking, and it had found its voice. The wind shifted before they heard the wheels. It was a strange kind of silence that came with them, rolling ahead like a warning whispered in the dust. Birds vanished. The heat bent slightly as if trying to avoid what approached. Even Shaina fell still, her blind eyes narrowed toward the east. Elijah saw the first glint sunlight on polished brass fittings long before the lead wagon crested the hill. The desert didn't often host visitors dressed in city wool and velvet gloves, nor carriages with gold-stamped insignia and dark-paneled sides. "Company folk," he muttered, spitting into the dust. Clara stepped beside him, eyes narrowing. "What company?" He didn't answer. Didn't need to. The crest set it all, a silver spiral around a black sun. Kepler Prospecting Syndicate. The first wagon rolled to a halt, followed by 4 more in tight formation. Men in gray uniforms and bowler hats stepped down with eerie precision. Then came the man in front. He was tall, lean, dressed in a slate coat, with boots too clean for desert soil. His beard was trimmed, his gloves spotless, and his smile mechanical. "Good day to you," he said. "Mr. Elijah Cole." I presume Elijah didn't offer a hand. "Who's asking?" The man's smile deepened, though his eyes never changed. "Silas Vane. I represent interests far older than this territory. We've come regarding the Feis-Tal compound." Clara stepped forward. "Feis-Tal? What the hell is that?" Vane turned to her. Dr. Keene. Or shall I say, Mrs. Reeve. She stiffened. He gestured, and from the third wagon a man stepped down. Clara's breath left her. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, the same line of jaw she had once kissed, the same dark hair, though now streaked with unnatural silver. But his eyes, those once warm hazel eyes, now glowed faintly like polished steel catching moonlight. "Isaac," she whispered. He didn't speak, didn't blink, just stood there, breathing, shallow eyes fixed on nothing. A statue dressed in flesh. Clara stumbled forward, pressing both palms against the glass separating them. Her breath fogged the surface, her voice cracked. "This isn't you. Isaac, please look at me, not through me." Vane placed a hand on his shoulder, almost like a handler with a well-trained hound. "Your husband is not quite what he was," Vane said. "But don't worry. The Feis-Tal has preserved him. Perfectly. What have you done to him?" Clara stepped closer, voice trembling. "Nothing he didn't consent to. He volunteered. One of the earliest subjects. You're lying. He died during the pox." "He transformed," Vane said. "The body perished, yes. But the mind survived. The Feis-Tal binds neuron to mineral, thought to lattice. It is an ancient compound, more structure than substance. It does not die. It remembers." Elijah growled. "You saying that iron's inside him?" "Not just inside," Vane replied. "It is him." Shaina finally spoke. "Feis-Tal was buried for a reason." Vane looked amused. "So the stories go. Your ancestors feared what they couldn't control. But we've studied it, harnessed it. Feis-Tal is sentient. It can carry consciousness, like water carries a reflection. It is not a curse. It is a passage. We are chosen vessels. The flesh was always a shell." Clara stared at her husband. "Is he aware? Sometimes. When the iron lets him be." Elijah stepped forward, fists clenched. "What do you want with me?" Vane's smile returned. "You've bonded naturally. That's rare. Usually we need to induce fusion under pressure. But yours began on its own. The resonance is clean, efficient. You could be key to understanding full integration. I ain't interested in being your experiment." "Oh, you already are. We just came to confirm the results." Vane snapped his fingers. From the last wagon, a man rolled out a crate. Inside, dozens of vials filled with glimmering blue-gray fragments, refined Feis-Tal. Shaina hissed. "You've awakened the heart." Vane's expression darkened. "No, but we will. And Mr. Cole may be the final piece." Isaac had been standing quietly behind his mother this whole time. Now he stepped forward. The men in gray tensed. Vane raised a hand. "What's your name, boy?" "Isaac. You hear them, don't you?" Isaac nodded slowly. "They don't talk like words. They sing in pieces." Vane's face lit with something close to reverence. "He's attuned. Faster than we expected." Clara pulled him back. "He's not yours." Vane shrugged. "We all belong to something. Flesh, stony, memory." Elijah's jaw tightened. "You're not taking him. Or me, you misunderstand," Vane said, stepping closer. "We're not asking." The air grew heavy. Then came the sound, not metal on stone, not hoof on soil, but voices. Whispering. Low and rising. From the shards in the crate, from the wound in Elijah's brow, from the air itself. Vane looked up, smiling. "They know you're ready." And Elijah, despite himself, felt it too. A pull, a call, a chorus of voices in iron. It began with a hum. Not sound exactly, but sense deep and low, a vibration that thrummed through Elijah's bones, like someone strumming rusted wire inside his spine. It began the moment they wheeled him into the chamber, round sheath, built deep into the base of a canyon, lost to time. He didn't remember agreeing to come. One moment, they'd been outside. Then a needle, a voice, a spreading cold behind his eyes. Now he was strapped to a chair of iron-thick cords connecting to his chest, wrists, and temples. The walls shimmered, not stone alone, but flecked with blue-gray veins that pulsed faintly as if the room breathed. Clara had screamed. He remembered that. And Isaac, his son's voice echoing in his mind. I can hear them too, Pa. They're calling you. Vane's voice poured from a speaker above, smooth as silk, sharp as a scalpel. Don't resist it, Mr. Cole. You're nearly complete. The iron in you is ready. Elijah's body burned in places where blood should not boil. His forehead, where the lump had once pulsed, now emitted a faint blue glow, like metal brought to life. This isn't me. This ain't right. He strained, but the restraints didn't budge. The hum deepened. The walls vibrated. A technician entered, adjusting dials. Behind him, through reinforced glass, Elijah saw Clara and Shaina bound, watching. Their eyes locked with his. He saw fear and something else. Helpless Ray. And Isaac. The boys stood apart, unphoned. Calm. Like he belonged. Elijah, Clara's voice cracked. They're using you, Shaina. Murmured something low and guttural. Vane stepped into view behind the glass, hands folded like a priest. Welcome. We stand on the edge of revelation. The Feis-Tal was never just a mineral. He turned to Clara, smiling. It was a prison. Clara stared. A prison for what? Vane's eyes sparkled. A god. The hum shifted. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Lights flickered blue. It has slumbered for millennia, Vane continued. The meteorite in 1849, it wasn't stone. It was a casing, a vault. When we mined the crater, we disturbed it. Slowly, yes, but not completely. He gestured toward Elijah. Until now. Your natural resonance. It's perfect. Clara stepped forward, fists clenched. What about Isaac? Vane's voice softened. He's different. A bridge. In children, Feis-Tal doesn't destroy. It adapts, enhances. His neural pathways are evolving. Isaac looked at Elijah through the gaze. I feel you, Pa. Inside me. Like we're not separate anymore. Elijah gasped as another wave of energy surged through him. The iron shifted, no longer pain, but purpose. His veins glowed faintly. I won't let you do this, he rasped. You've already begun, Vane replied. The earth trembled, not shaking, pulsing. A crack formed in the far wall. Clara screamed again. He's waking it. Stop him. Shaina chanted louder, voice breaking. It was sealed for a reason. You don't know what you're freeing. Vane's eyes burned with zeal. We do know. That's the point. A shriek ripped through the chamber. Neither beast nor storm nor machine. Elijah's chair trembled. In his head, whispers began. Not words, images. Fire, wings, eyes that never blinked. You are not the first, and you will not be the last. He saw it, nobody just will. A presence locked in iron threads, slumbering before oceans formed. Feis-Tal. The fragments in him twisted and spun beneath the skin. Across the glass, Isaac gripped his stomach, gasping. It's talking to me. Clara knelt beside him, clutching his face. You're stronger. You can fight it. Isaac shook his head slowly. I don't want to. It feels like home. Vane looked awestruck. See, the iron is not infection. It's invitation. Not destruction, evolution. We are not opening a prison. We're becoming part of it. Shaina slammed her head against the wall, blood seeping from her mouth. He's not a bridge. He's a gate. And the gate opened. The glass shattered inward. The hum became a roar. Elijah's restraints snapped like paper. He fell forward, but didn't hit the floor. The iron held him. Vane stepped toward him, arms wide. It has begun. Elijah opened his eyes. They weren't brown anymore. They burned like molten steel. And deep beneath the canyon, something vast began to rise. The smell of scorched metal clung to the cavern walls, mingling with the sharp tang of blood and dust. A low vibration ran beneath the floor, like a living pulse, steady, ancient, and rising. Clara's boots slipped on a smear of black fluid as she sprinted toward the chamber. The shattered remains of the observation window crunched under her heel. Behind her, Shaina moved like a shadow, murmuring in a tongue, older than English, older even than the stone around them. Elijah knelt at the chamber's center, arms, limp veins glowing faintly as if lit from within. His eyes, once steel-bright, now flickered with something closer to sorrow. "Hold on, Elijah, Elijah," Clara gasped, skidding beside him. "I feel it," he murmured. "All of it. It's awake." Behind them, the earth groaned, a sound not made by soil or stone, but by something vast moving in the deep. A fissure had begun to spread along the far wall, and from it came a blue glow and a low, pulsing chant, ancient, not human. Clara turned to Shaina. "What do we do?" The blind woman's face was grim. "There's only one way. The heart must shatter. The seal must return." "You mean the iron in him?" Shaina nodded. "It is the anchor. The voice. Without it, the gate closes." Elijah blinked, sluggish and heavy. "You want me to tear it out?" "Not by hand," Shaina replied, kneeling opposite Clara. "By will." Suddenly, a figure burst through the far door, tall, shuddering, wrapped in a shroud of vibrating silver light. Dr. Isaac Reeve. Clara's breath caught in her throat. His face flickered, half man, half metallic ruin. The Feis-Tal had begun to unravel him. "Clara," his voice cracked. I can feel you." Tears sprang to her eyes. "Isaac, is that really you?" His steps faltered. The silver in him dimmed just a shade. "Tell Isaac, our boy, I'm sorry." Then the light surged again, burning brighter than before. He roared and charged toward Elijah. Clara screamed, but Elijah stood. The resonance from his body pulsed outward in waves matching the rhythm of the very earth. He raised one hand not to strike, but to sing. A harmonic tone emerged, piercing and clean. The silver in Isaac spasmed. He stumbled, arms flailing, and fell forward. The body cracked. A burst of metallic shards sprayed outward, and the man once known as Dr. Isaac Reeve collapsed, nothing more than shattered shell and ash. Silence. Then the rumble returned, louder now. The fissure widened, and for a moment, just a glimpse, something vast stirred behind it. Not a body, but a shape. Eyes, wings, memory. "Alicia Cephas." Shaina whispered, "You must do it now, before the core beneath us takes shape." Elijah nodded slowly. "What do I have to do?" "Bring all the iron to the surface. Let the resonance peak. And then release it. Scatter the memory." He turned to Clara, his voice quieter than the wind. "Will you take care of him, Isaac?" She gripped his hand hard. "With everything I have." Elijah's eyes then met his son's. Isaac stood frozen, tears on his cheeks, hands trembling. Elijah gave him a long final look, filled with sorrow, pride, and something unspoken. A nod. A goodbye. Then Elijah stepped to the center of the sigil Shaina had drawn, with her own blood and ash. His body straightened. His chest rose. And he sang. It wasn't music, not truly. It was a vibration that rose from the marrow, a note born of pain and defiance and love. The iron in his veins responded. It glowed brighter than before, then pulsed outward in jagged waves. The air turned to glass. The stone cracked. A scream, not human, not earthly, echoed from deep below. Feis-Tal writhed. Elijah's voice rose to match it, then rose higher still into a register no human ear should hear. And then, With a final cry he let go. The resonance shattered. The ground heaved. Shafts buckled. The machinery exploded in sparks and twisted metal. Feis-Tal fractured. The gate slammed shut. Clara shielded Isaac as dust and debris rained down. Shaina wrapped her arms around both of them, chanting a final word of sealing. When the silence finally came, it was deep, full, and heavy with grief. At the center of the ruin stood only scorched earth. Elijah was gone, but the voice was gone too. And far above in the open sky, the stars blinked, not with malice, but peace. The iron had returned to sleep. And somewhere in the quiet hollow of the canyon, a child stood with veins still faintly glowing, his heartbeat, in tune with a memory the world could never quite forget. The canyon was silent again. Time, as it always does, folded the past into dust. But not completely. Not where the wind still whispered through red rock, and the shadows held the shape of old memories. Elijah Cole stood alone near the rim of the ravine, staring out across the arid land, as if trying to read something lost in the ochre dust. The sun was lower now, gentler. It painted long shadows across the sandstone, warm and weary. The scar on his side had burned for weeks. It no longer glowed. The iron was gone. Shaina had seen to that. But something deeper remained, a hollowness, where the resonance used to hum, as if silence had taken root beneath his ribs. He touched the scar now, fingers grazing the ridged burn where Feis-Tal once pulsed. Behind him, boots crunched over gravel. "You all right, old man?" Elijah turned. Isaac stood there, hat too big for his head sleeves rolled up, eyes steady and older than any 11-year-olds had a right to be. Elijah smiled. "Didn't think you'd be the one calling me that so soon." Isaac shrugged. "You look like you've been to hell and back." "I have," Elijah said simply. "And so have you." The boy came closer. There was still a faint shimmer under his skin, like moonlight trapped beneath flesh. But he moved freely, breathed easily. Whatever lived in him now, it wasn't trying to consume him. "You still feel it?" Elijah asked. Isaac nodded. "Not all the time. But when I do, it's quiet. Like it's listening." "That doesn't scare you?" Isaac looked out over the desert. "It used to. But I figure if I'm the one carrying it, I get to decide what it hears." Elijah placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're stronger than I ever was." They stood there a moment, watching the wind lift dust into small spirals that vanished as quickly as they came. Farther down the slope, nestled in the bend of a dried-up arroyo, the new clinic was nearly finished. Clara moved among lumber and supplies, like a woman who had remembered how to hope. Her hands were stained with sawdust and ink. Her sleeves rolled, her brow furrowed in thought. Elijah and Isaac approached. "She's been at it since dawn," Elijah said. Clara looked up. "And you've been brooding since sunset yesterday." He raised his hands in mock surrender. "Old habits." She smiled, tired but genuine. "Come help me set the shelves. This place won't build itself." The clinic was simple: wood walls, tin roof, wide windows that let in light and air. No signs, no symbols. Just a place to tend wounds and offer rest. On a small table near the rear wall sat a sealed jar. Inside were fragments of iron, cold, inert, lifeless. The last of what Shaina had pulled from Elijah's blood. Sometimes Elijah swore the jar hummed faintly at night, like it hadn't quite forgotten the voice. Clara noticed his gaze. "You think we should have buried them?" "No," Elijah said. "Let them sit in the light. Let them remember." Isaac stood beside the jar, staring at it. "No one will ever believe it happened." "That's all right," Clara said, wiping her hands on a cloth. "Some truths are meant to be carried, not shared." She paused, then added softly, "Shaina didn't leave a name behind. But her song lingers. I hum it when I work." They left the clinic and stepped out into dusk. Somewhere coyotes howled. The sky turned the color of old bruises purple gold, fading into night. Elijah spoke softly as if afraid the canyon might hear. "They're really gone," Clara nodded. "The company's gone underground, or scattered. The syndicate's name doesn't appear in any charter anymore, like they were never real. Maybe that's for the best." Isaac looked up. "What happens if someone finds another piece of it?" Elijah didn't answer right away. He crouched, picked up a stone, and tossed it into the arroyo. The sound echoed. "Then they'll need someone who remembers." Shaina hadn't stayed. After the sealing, she disappeared into the high mesas, without a word. But her song still lingered in Elijah's dreams, verses not in any book, and rhythms older than memory. As night fell, the three of them lit a lantern and sat on the clinic's porch. No ceremony, no words, just the wind, and the faint, slow beat of a young boy's heart, steady, certain, bearing the weight of stars. And though the iron slept, it dreamed, still waiting for the boy who would one day awaken it with kindness.